Text thumbnail. My husband's sister moved in with us after losing her job. At first I welcomed her, but soon noticed her strange behavior around my husband. When I found her wearing my clothes and copying my hairstyle, I knew something was wrong. Then I discovered her secret plan to replace me. I'm Grace, 35 years old, living what I thought was the perfect life in Seattle with my husband Mark. We had it all, a beautiful home, thriving careers, and plans for our future family. Then my sister-in-law Amanda lost her job and needed a place to stay. I welcomed her with open arms, not realizing she had other plans. At first the changes were so subtle, I questioned my own sanity. But when I found her wearing my clothes and sleeping in my bed, I knew something was terribly wrong. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from in the comments, hit like and subscribe too. Hear how I discovered her disturbing plan to replace me in my own life. When I think back to my life before Amanda moved in, it almost feels like a dream. Mark and I had built something beautiful together. I had worked my way up as a photographer, starting with small gigs at local events and gradually building my reputation until I had my own studio specializing in family portraits and weddings. Photography wasn't just my profession, it was my passion. I loved capturing those genuine moments of joy between people, preserving memories that would last a lifetime. I met Mark 6 years ago at a charity gala where I was the official photographer. He was there representing his software company, which he had built from the ground up. I remember him approaching me, curious about my camera equipment. What started as a technical conversation quickly evolved into something more personal. We talked for hours that night, and by the end of the evening, he had asked me out to dinner. Our relationship progressed quickly. There was an ease between us, a natural compatibility that made everything simple. Within a year, we were married in a beautiful ceremony on the coast, surrounded by our closest friends and family. We bought our home in Seattle shortly after, a charming 2-story house with enough space for my home studio and an office for Mark. The neighborhood was perfect, close enough to the city for convenience, but quiet enough to feel like a retreat. Our daily routine had a comfortable rhythm to it. Mornings started with coffee on the porch, when weather permitted, discussing our plans for the day. Mark would head to his office downtown, while I would either work from my home studio or meet clients on location. Evenings were our time together, cooking dinner, walking through the neighborhood, watching our favorite shows, or just talking about our day. Weekends were for exploring the beautiful Pacific Northwest hiking trails, visiting wineries, or taking spontaneous road trips. We both wanted children, but we had agreed to wait until my business was more established. This year was supposed to be when we would start trying. We had even begun converting one of the spare bedrooms into a nursery, picking out color schemes and furniture. Mark's parents, John and Eleanor, lived in Florida after retiring from their respective careers in education. We visited them twice a year and always enjoyed our time together. They were supportive, kind people who had welcomed me into their family with genuine warmth. Our relationship with them was uncomplicated and loving. Amanda, Mark's younger sister, had always been somewhat of a mystery to me. She lived in Chicago and worked in marketing, at least that's what we thought. Our interactions had been limited to family gatherings. Thanksgiving, Christmas, the occasional birthday celebration. She was always pleasant, if a bit reserved around me. She and Mark had the easy rapport of siblings who grew up close, sharing inside jokes and childhood memories. I had always hoped to develop a deeper relationship with her, but never seemed to find the opportunity. Then came the call from Mark's parents. Amanda had lost her job due to company downsizing and subsequently couldn't afford her apartment anymore. She needed a place to stay temporarily while she got back on her feet. Without hesitation, Mark offered our home. I supported the decision completely. Family helps family, and we had the space. The guest bedroom was fully furnished and rarely used. We expected her stay to last a few weeks, maybe a couple of months at most, just until she found a new job and apartment. I was actually excited about the arrangement. This would be my chance to finally bond with my sister-in-law, to welcome her properly into my life, and strengthen our family ties. I spent the day before her arrival preparing the guest room, stocking the bathroom with fresh towels and toiletries, and cooking her favorite meal according to Mark. If only I had known what was coming. If only I had recognized the danger that was about to enter our home, disguised as family in need. But how could I? Some threats come from where you least expect them, from the people you're supposed to be able to trust. And sometimes the greatest danger is not recognizing the threat until it's almost too late. The day Amanda arrived was sunny but cool, a perfect Seattle spring day. I remember standing beside Mark in our driveway, watching her car pull up. She emerged looking tired, but relieved, her smile brightening when Mark embraced her. When it was my turn for a hug, she held on a beat longer than necessary, thanking me profusely for opening our home to her. I assured her it was no problem at all, we were family after all. Mark carried her suitcases to the guest room while I gave her a tour of our home. She seemed appropriately appreciative, complimenting the decor and asking thoughtful questions about various photographs and mementos. When I showed her my studio space, she expressed genuine interest in my work, asking to see some of my favorite pieces. I was touched by her enthusiasm and spent nearly an hour showing her my portfolio. Her attentiveness made me feel that we were already developing the bond I had hoped for. That first evening, we ate dinner together on the back patio, sharing a bottle of wine as the sun set. Amanda told us about Chicago, her previous job, and her plans to find new employment quickly. She insisted she didn't want to impose any longer than necessary. Mark assured her she could stay as long as she needed, and I nodded in agreement. I really appreciate this, she said, her eyes glistening slightly. I promise I'll help around the house. You won't even know I'm here. The first week went smoothly. Amanda was the perfect house guest, clean, considerate, and helpful. She made her bed each morning, kept the bathroom tidy, and even prepared dinner twice. She seemed to be spending her days applying for jobs, her laptop constantly open to employment websites, and her phone periodically buzzing with email notifications. It was during the second week that I began noticing small, odd behaviors. Nothing alarming, just curious. One evening, as Mark and I recounted the story of how we met, Amanda asked unusually detailed questions. So when exactly did you know she was the one, she asked Mark. Was it immediate or did it build over time? What were you wearing on your first date, Grace? She followed up. Did you order dessert? Who paid? I brushed it off as normal curiosity, even feeling pleased that she wanted to know these details about our relationship. A few days later, I noticed Amanda complimenting Mark with increasing frequency. You look so handsome in that blue shirt, she said one morning as he prepared for work. It really brings out your eyes. Your new haircut is perfect. Another day. It suits your face shape so well. Again, nothing inherently wrong with compliments, but the frequency and intensity felt slightly off. I noticed Mark standing a little straighter, smiling a little wider at her words. Then came the first truly strange incident. I returned from a client meeting to find Amanda wearing a white button-down shirt and jeans, an outfit nearly identical to one I often wore. When I mentioned the coincidence, she laughed. Great minds think alike, I guess. Or maybe your style is rubbing off on me. A few days later, she wore her hair in the same messy bun style I had adopted that week. Then she bought shoes remarkably similar to my favorite boots. Small things easily explained away, yet collectively creating a faint sense of unease. I began noticing how Amanda would position herself between Mark and me on the couch during movie nights, or how she would interject when we were having private conversations. Once she knocked on our bedroom door well after midnight, claiming she heard a strange noise and felt scared. Mark spent nearly an hour checking the house and reassuring her while I lay awake, wondering why she hadn't texted instead of interrupting our sleep. One evening, I came home to find Amanda preparing Mark's favorite meal, my special recipe for beef bourguignon that I only made on special occasions. What struck me as odd wasn't just that she was cooking his favorite dish, but that I had never mentioned to her that it was his favorite, or how I prepared it. How did you know that's Mark's favorite? I asked casually. Oh, he mentioned it the other day when we were talking about food, she replied without looking up from the stove. When I asked Mark about it later, he shrugged. Maybe I did mention it. I don't remember specifically. As the weeks passed, I noticed Mark enjoying the extra attention Amanda gave him. She laughed at all his jokes, asked about his day with genuine interest, and remembered small details about his work that even I sometimes forgot. It was subtle, but I could see him gravitating toward her presence in the room, his eyes seeking her reaction when he told a story. My discomfort grew, but so did my guilt. Amanda was family, and she was going through a difficult time. Was I being petty, jealous? Insecure, I tried to push these thoughts aside and focus on being a good host. The real wake-up call came during a dinner party with our close friends. I had invited two couples we often socialized with, hoping to help Amanda make some local connections. Throughout the evening, Amanda dominated the conversation with stories about Mark's childhood, speaking with such authority and intimacy that one of our friends actually asked how long we had all lived together. Oh, we don't, I clarified quickly. Amanda's just staying with us temporarily. Could have fooled me, my friend Jasmine commented later when we were alone in the kitchen. She talks about you guys like she's been here forever. Is everything okay? I confided some of my minor concerns to Jasmine, who listened sympathetically. It sounds like she might be a bit lost right now, Jasmine suggested. People sometimes latch onto others' identities when they're unsure of their own. Give her some time to adjust and find her footing, but definitely keep an eye on the situation. Jasmine's words reassured me, and I resolved to be more patient and understanding. Amanda was going through a major life transition. Of course, she might behave a little strangely. I needed to be supportive, not suspicious. That night, as I lay next to Mark, I made a conscious decision to give Amanda more time and space to find her way. I would be more compassionate, less quick to judge. After all, if our situations were reversed, I would hope for the same kindness from her. Little did I know then how gravely I had underestimated the situation. The red flags I had noticed were not merely the behavior of someone temporarily lost. They were the opening moves in a carefully orchestrated game. And I, in my willingness to think the best of family, had missed my chance to stop it before it went too far. 2 months after Amanda moved in, I realized something was very wrong. Despite her claims of actively job hunting, she showed no signs of actually leaving. Each week brought a new excuse. The job market was tough, the positions weren't right, the commute would be too long. Meanwhile, her presence in our home grew more invasive by the day. One morning, I was reviewing my calendar when I noticed Amanda hovering nearby, watching me with unusual intensity. "Do you need something?" I asked. "Just curious about your schedule," she replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're always so busy and organized." Later that day, I discovered she had begun inserting herself between Mark and me in increasingly bold ways. If Mark and I were discussing weekend plans, Amanda would interrupt with alternative suggestions that conveniently included her. If we were having a quiet moment together in the living room, she would suddenly appear needing help with something that only Mark could assist with. The bathroom incident was when my concerns solidified into genuine alarm. I came home early from a cancelled shoot to find my expensive face serum and night cream opened and partially used. My makeup had been rearranged with several items showing signs of use. When confronted, Amanda claimed she had run out of her own products and meant to replace mine. "I should have asked first," she admitted with an apologetic smile. "I just didn't think you'd mind since we're family." The very next week, I discovered an important client email had been deleted from my computer. I only realized because the client called me directly confused about why I hadn't responded to their booking request. "I'm so sorry," Amanda said when I questioned her about using my laptop. "I was checking my email and must have accidentally deleted yours. I'm not very tech-savvy." But the explanation felt hollow. My email required a separate login from the browser. There was no way to accidentally access it, much less delete a specific message from an important client. The copying of my appearance became more blatant. I got my hair cut into a new style with subtle highlights. Within days, Amanda appeared with the identical cut and colour. I purchased a distinctive blue dress for a gallery opening. The following week, Amanda ordered the same one in her size. These weren't coincidences anymore. They were deliberate acts of imitation. The most disturbing incident came when I returned home unexpectedly one afternoon, having forgotten some equipment for a shoot. The house was quiet, and thinking I was alone, I walked upstairs to our bedroom. The door was partially open, and I froze at what I saw: Amanda standing before my mirror, wearing my favourite silk blouse, and a pair of my jeans, carefully applying my signature red lipstick. She was studying her reflection with intense concentration, turning her head this way and that, as if assessing how convincingly she could become me. I must have made a sound because she startled, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. For a split second, before she composed her features into embarrassed surprise, I saw something cold and calculating in her gaze that sent a chill through me. "Grace, I thought you were gone for the day," she exclaimed hurriedly, wiping off the lipstick. "This is so embarrassing. I've always admired your style and wanted to see if I could pull it off." I nodded mutely, too shocked to formulate a response. That night, I told Mark about finding his sister in our bedroom wearing my clothes. "Don't you think that's a bit strange?" I asked, searching his face for agreement. But Mark just shrugged. "She's probably just trying to reinvent herself after losing her job. You have great taste. Maybe she's using you as inspiration." "Inspiration is one thing, Mark. This feels like imitation, invasion." "You're overreacting," he said dismissively. "It's just clothes. Sisters borrow each other's stuff all the time." "We're not sisters." And she didn't borrow them. She took them without asking while I wasn't home. She was in our bedroom going through my things. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's going through a rough time, Grace. Can you cut her some slack? It's not like she stole anything." His defense of Amanda hurt more than her behaviour. For the first time in our marriage, I felt a gulf opening between us, with Mark standing firmly on the other side. As the weeks continued, Amanda became more brazen in her undermining comments. "The chicken is a little dry tonight," she would say casually at dinner, or "that client seemed disappointed with the photos you showed them." Small cuts delivered with a smile designed to diminish me in Mark's eyes. She began creating scenarios where she and Mark would spend time alone together, asking for his help with her resume when I was busy with clients, suggesting they check out a new hiking trail on mornings when I had shoots scheduled, volunteering the two of them to pick up groceries while I was editing photos. My anxiety increased to the point where it affected my work. I found myself making uncharacteristic mistakes, forgetting equipment, missing emails, showing up late to sessions. Sleep became elusive, and I would lie awake listening to Amanda and Mark laughing downstairs after I'd gone to bed, wondering what they were talking about if she was continuing to poison him against me. One afternoon, I came home earlier than expected and overheard Amanda on the phone in the guest room door ajar. "Things are going really well here," she was saying to whoever was on the other end. "I'm practically Mark's wife already. Grace is definitely noticing, but there's not much she can do about it. He always takes my side now." I stood frozen, my heart pounding. This was confirmation of what I had begun to suspect, but couldn't quite believe. Amanda's behavior wasn't random or unconscious. It was deliberate, strategic. She wanted my husband, my life, and was systematically working to replace me. But when I tried to talk to Mark about what I'd overheard, he was skeptical. "You probably misunderstood," he said. Maybe she was talking about how close we've all become as a family. You know how Amanda exaggerates sometimes. Mark, those were her exact words. "I'm practically Mark's wife already. How could I possibly misinterpret that?" He shook his head, looking frustrated. "I think you're reading too much into things. Maybe you're feeling a bit threatened because Amanda and I have been reconnecting as siblings. That's normal, but you don't need to create drama where there isn't any." I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. The man who had always trusted my judgment, who had built a life with me based on mutual respect, was now dismissing my concerns as imagination and jealousy. It was as though Amanda had cast some kind of spell over him, blinding him to her manipulation. That night, I cried silently in the bathroom, feeling more alone than I had in years. I knew something was deeply wrong in my home, but without Mark's support, I didn't know how to fight it. The woman I had welcomed with open arms was systematically undermining my marriage and my sense of security, and my husband couldn't or wouldn't see it. I needed evidence, something concrete that even Mark couldn't dismiss. Something that would break whatever hold Amanda had established over him. Because one thing had become crystal clear to me: this wasn't just about Amanda wanting attention or going through a difficult time. This was about her wanting what I had, all of it. And I was increasingly afraid she might succeed. After weeks of gaslighting and dismissal, I realized I needed to take matters into my own hands. If no one would believe my experiences, I would need hard evidence of Amanda's true intentions. I began my investigation, quietly determined to understand what was really happening in my home. My first step was reaching out to Mark's parents. Under the guise of planning a surprise for Amanda to cheer her up during her job search, I called Eleanor to gather more information about Amanda's recent life in Chicago. "How long had Amanda been at her marketing job before the downsizing?" I asked casually. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Marketing job, Amanda worked at a boutique, dear. She's never been in marketing." My stomach dropped. "But she told us she lost her marketing position due to company downsizing." "Well," Eleanor said hesitantly, "she did lose her job, but it wasn't in marketing. And between us, I'm not entirely sure it was due to downsizing." She was vague about the details. As our conversation continued, more inconsistencies emerged. According to Eleanor, Amanda had been dating someone seriously in Chicago, a man named Daniel, until a few months before moving to Seattle. "The breakup was quite hard on her," Eleanor explained. "Daniel left her for another woman. Someone quite successful, I believe. A photographer or graphic designer of some sort." A chill ran down my spine. A photographer. Like me. "Do you happen to know what this woman looked like?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I never met her, but Amanda once mentioned she had brown hair worn in a long bob. Pretty professional type. Why do you ask?" I touched my own brown bob, feeling sick. "Just curious. Thanks for filling me in." After hanging up, I sat motionless, processing this new information. Amanda had lied about her job. She had recently been left by her boyfriend for a woman who, from the description, sounded remarkably like me. Suddenly, her fixation made a twisted kind of sense in her mind. If becoming like me had caused her to lose Daniel, perhaps becoming even more like me could help her win Mark. My next discovery came by accident. While cleaning the guest room when Amanda was out, I moved the bedside table to vacuum beneath it and noticed a leather-bound journal that had fallen behind. I knew I shouldn't read it. It was a massive invasion of privacy, but my instincts were screaming that I needed to know what was happening in my home. With trembling hands, I opened the journal. What I found inside chilled me to the bone. Page after page detailed Amanda's observations about me, my habits, my style, my mannerisms, my relationship with Mark. She had created a meticulous study of my life, noting everything from my morning routine to my favorite phrases to how I touched Mark when we were together. Grace always tucks her hair behind her right ear when concentrating, one entry read. Mark seems to find this endearing. Another, Grace wears minimal makeup except for red lipstick on special occasions. Mark compliments her every time. But most disturbing were the entries about her plans. Day 45, making progress. Mark now comes to me first with his work stories. Grace notices but can't say anything without sounding petty. Day 58, Mark defended me again today when Grace complained about the bathroom. The distance between them grows. Soon he'll see I understand him better than she ever could. Day 60, when Grace is gone, this will be my home, my husband, my life. I deserve this more than she does. I took photos of the most incriminating pages with shaking hands, then carefully replaced the journal exactly as I had found it. My mind was reeling with the confirmation that my worst fears weren't paranoia, they were understated. Amanda wasn't just admiring my life, she was plotting to take it. Further investigation revealed more shocking truths. While using the family computer, I checked the browser history and found Amanda's searches, how to make someone appear unstable, gaslighting techniques, divorce laws in Washington state, and most chillingly, how to get someone committed to psychiatric care. In a hidden folder on the computer, I discovered dozens of photos, all of Mark, many taken while he was unaware, sleeping, working, showering. Some dated back months before she had moved in, suggesting she had been planning this for longer than I had realized. Most damning of all, I found emails proving Amanda had never actually lost her job. She had quit voluntarily, planning her move to Seattle weeks in advance. The entire premise of her staying with us had been a calculated lie. Armed with this evidence, I confronted Amanda one afternoon when Mark was at work. I laid out what I had found, the journal, the searches, the photos, the emails, and watched as her friendly facade crumbled. She broke down in tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration at being caught. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "You have everything, the perfect husband, the perfect career, the perfect life. I just wanted a piece of that. Is that so wrong, to want what my brother has, to want to be part of this family in a real way? By replacing me, by deliberately trying to destroy my marriage. That's not wanting to be part of a family, Amanda. That's something much darker." Her expression shifted, then her eyes hardening. "Mark will never believe you," she said with sudden coldness. "You went through my personal things. You invaded my privacy. When I tell him that, whose side do you think he'll take?" She was right. That evening, when I tried to show Mark the evidence, Amanda had already poisoned the well. She had told him I had ransacked her room while she was out, read her private journal, and hacked into her email, all because of my irrational jealousy and paranoid delusions about her relationship with Mark. "She's your sister, Mark," I pleaded. "She needs professional help. This isn't normal sibling behavior." "What isn't normal is going through someone's private journal," Mark replied, his voice tight with anger. "Amanda is family, Grace. She came to us for help, and this is how you treat her, by violating her privacy and making wild accusations." The argument that followed was the worst of our marriage. Mark defended Amanda completely, suggesting that perhaps I was the one who needed help if I was so threatened by his relationship with his sister. The evidence I had gathered was dismissed as the actions of a paranoid, jealous wife. That night, for the first time, Mark slept in the guest room, Amanda having conveniently offered to sleep on the couch, to give us space. I lay alone in our bed, tears streaming down my face, wondering how the man I loved could be so blind to what was happening right in front of him. I felt utterly alone, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty: Amanda wouldn't stop until she had everything she wanted. And what she wanted was my life. I needed a new strategy, one that not even Amanda could manipulate her way out of. After the failed confrontation, I felt completely isolated in my own home. Mark was cold and distant, spending more time with Amanda and treating me like I was the problem. My beautiful life had transformed into a nightmare, and I was running out of ways to fight back. Amanda's behavior grew more aggressive now that she knew I was onto her. One morning, I discovered my camera's memory card corrupted, losing an entire wedding shoot. Another day, my professional lights were accidentally knocked over and damaged. When I confronted her, She expressed exaggerated concern and insisted it must have been the cat, despite the fact that we didn't have a pet. "These things happen, Grace," she said with false sympathy. "Maybe you're just going through a streak of bad luck." But it wasn't bad luck. It was sabotage calculated to make me appear incompetent and unstable. The sabotage extended beyond my equipment. Important client meetings were rescheduled without my knowledge. Emails went unanswered because they were marked as read before I saw them. My professional reputation, which I had spent years building, was being systematically dismantled. Even more disturbing was how Amanda had begun spreading rumors about my mental state. I discovered she had been telling our neighbors and friends that I was experiencing episodes of paranoia and instability. "We're all so worried about Grace." I overheard her telling our next-door neighbor. "The stress of her business must be getting to her. She's been imagining things, accusing people. Mark is at his wit's end, poor thing." Mark himself had become almost a stranger to me. He spent his evenings talking with Amanda, the two of them going quiet whenever I entered the room. He stopped sharing details of his day with me, no longer asked about my work, and physically withdrew. No more casual touches, kisses, or the comfortable intimacy we had always shared. One evening, I passed by the living room to hear Amanda consoling Mark. "Marriage goes through phases," she was saying softly. "Grace is clearly struggling right now. It's not your fault. Some people just change, and not always for the better." "I feel like I don't even know who she is anymore," Mark replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "The Grace I married would never have invaded someone's privacy like that." "The stress might be too much for her," Amanda suggested. "Maybe she should consider taking a break, getting some help. I'll be here for you no matter what." Their conversation felt like a physical blow. They were discussing me as if I were mentally ill, as if our marriage problems stemmed from my deteriorating condition, rather than Amanda's calculated interference. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon. I had been out meeting a potential client and returned home earlier than expected. The house was quiet, and I assumed Mark and Amanda were out. I headed upstairs to change clothes and froze in the doorway of our bedroom. Amanda stood before our full-length mirror, wearing my wedding dress, the delicate lace and silk I had carefully preserved. On her fingers glittered my engagement and wedding rings, which had been stored in my jewelry box. Her hair was styled like mine on my wedding day, and she was holding a framed photo of Mark and me from the ceremony, studying it intently. She hadn't noticed me yet, too absorbed in her reflection and the photo. I watched as she practiced smiling, tilting her head the exact way I did in the photograph, mimicking my expression with disturbing accuracy. "What are you doing?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. Amanda whirled around the dress swirling around her ankles. For a moment, naked shock and something like guilt flashed across her face before she composed herself. "Grace, I always wondered what it felt like to wear such a beautiful dress. I hope you don't mind. I was going to put everything back, of course." "Take it off." My voice was shaking with rage. "Take off my dress and my rings. Now." "There's no need to overreact," she said, her tone condescending. "It's just a bit of fun. Girls try on wedding dresses all the time. Not other women's actual wedding dresses without permission. Not while wearing stolen jewelry and practicing how to be them." Amanda's expression hardened. "You really are becoming unhinged, aren't you? It's sad to watch." "Get out of my dress and get out of my room," I shouted, my composure finally breaking. The commotion brought Mark running upstairs. He stared in confusion at the scene before him, Amanda in my wedding dress, me shaking with fury. "What's going on?" he demanded. Before I could speak, Amanda burst into tears. "I just wanted to try it on," she sobbed. "I've been so depressed about being single." And Grace walked in and started screaming at me. "I think she's really not well, Mark. I'm getting scared." Mark looked between us, his expression troubled. To my horror, he went to Amanda first, putting a comforting arm around her shoulders. "It's okay," he said gently. "Grace, don't you think you're overreacting? It's just a dress." "Just a dress," I repeated incredulously. "It's my wedding dress." "She's wearing my rings. She's been systematically trying to become me for months, and you keep defending her." Mark's face hardened. "I think you need to calm down. Maybe even talk to someone professional. This paranoia about Amanda isn't healthy." In that moment, something broke inside me. My husband, the man who had vowed to stand by my side, was suggesting I needed psychiatric help for recognizing the very real threat in our home. The following days were a nightmare. Amanda suggested she move into the master bedroom to give me space, and to my shock, Mark considered it. I began sleeping with my door locked, afraid of what might happen while I was vulnerable. My suspicions reached a new level when I began experiencing strange symptoms in the evenings: dizziness, confusion, unusual drowsiness. One night, I pretended to drink the tea Amanda had prepared for me, but secretly disposed of it. Instead of becoming drowsy, I remained alert and watchful. Later that night, I heard Amanda and Mark talking in the kitchen. "She seems better tonight," Mark was saying, "more lucid." "The herbal tea helps," Amanda replied. "It has natural calming properties. Much better than those harsh medications a psychiatrist would prescribe." A cold realization washed over me. She had been drugging me not with prescription medications that would be difficult to obtain, but with something more readily available, possibly over-the-counter sleep aids crushed into my evening tea. Just enough to make me seem confused, unstable, not quite myself. I knew then that I needed definitive, irrefutable proof, something so clear that even Mark couldn't deny it. The next day, I purchased a small voice recorder and concealed it in the living room. That evening, I pretended to go to bed early, complaining of another headache. From my bedroom, I listened through a paired Bluetooth device as Amanda began talking to Mark. "I'm really worried about her," she said. "These mood swings, the paranoia, the accusations. It's classic signs of a breakdown." "I know," Mark sighed heavily. "I just don't know what to do anymore. She's not the woman I married." "Maybe it would be best if she went away for a while," Amanda suggested. "Got some professional help. I could help take care of things here while she recovers." "You mean like a facility?" Mark sounded uncertain. "Just temporarily, for her own good. And then we'll see where things stand." There was a pause, and my heart pounded as I waited for Mark's response. "I don't know if I could do that to her," he finally said. "Sometimes the kindest thing to do for someone you love is to recognize when they need help beyond what you can provide," Amanda said softly. "Think about it, Mark. How long can you live like this? How long before her condition affects her business, your reputation, everything you've built?" The conversation continued with Amanda skillfully manipulating Mark's concerns into something darker, painting a picture of me as increasingly unstable and potentially dangerous. Then came the words that chilled me to my core. "Once Grace is gone, things will be better," Amanda said. "You'll see. I can take care of you the way she used to before all this started. We could be happy, Mark. You and me." "What do you mean, you and me?" Mark's voice had a new edge to it. "Haven't you felt it?" Amanda's voice dropped to a seductive whisper. "The connection between us, it's always been there, just waiting for us to acknowledge it. I know it's complicated because I'm your sister, but we aren't blood related. I'm adopted, remember? There's nothing really stopping us from being together." The silence that followed was deafening. I held my breath, waiting for Mark's horrified rejection. "Amanda," he finally said, his voice strained. "I think you're confused about our relationship. You're my sister, blood-related or not, and I love Grace. She's my wife." "But she's not well," Amanda insisted. "And I'm here. I understand you in ways she never could. I've studied her, learned what you like, what you need. I can be better for you than she ever was." I had heard enough. I had my proof, clear, unmistakable evidence of Amanda's true intentions, recorded and saved. This was no longer about paranoia or jealousy. This was about a deeply disturbed woman who had infiltrated our home with the express purpose of replacing me and taking my husband. With shaking hands, I made copies of the recording, sending one to my email and one to Jasmine for safekeeping. Then I began planning my next move. The confrontation that was coming would be unlike anything we had faced before, but this time I would not be dismissed or gaslighted. This time I had irrefutable truth on my side. Armed with evidence and a newfound determination, I knew it was time for the final confrontation. But I needed to be strategic. Amanda had proven herself adept at manipulation, particularly with Mark. So I contacted Jasmine and my lawyer friend Patricia, sharing everything I had gathered: the journal photos, browser history, voice recordings, and my suspicions about being drugged. "This is serious, Grace," Patricia said after reviewing the evidence. "What she's doing could potentially be criminal, drugging you, identity theft, possibly even planning involuntary psychiatric commitment through fraudulent claims. You need to protect yourself." With their help, I developed a comprehensive plan. First, I sent copies of all my evidence to Mark's parents, along with a detailed letter explaining the situation. I wasn't trying to turn them against their daughter, but they needed to understand the severity of what was happening, both for my safety and for Amanda's own well-being. She clearly needed professional help. Next, without Amanda's knowledge, I set up cameras in the common areas of our house. Nothing in private spaces like bedrooms or bathrooms, but enough to capture her behavior when she thought no one was watching. Within 2 days, I had footage of her trying on my clothes, practicing my signature, and most damning of all, adding something to my evening tea from a small bottle she kept hidden in her pocket. I took a sample of the tea to be tested, which confirmed my suspicions. It contained a significant amount of diphenhydramine, an over-the-counter sleep aid that in larger doses can cause confusion and impaired cognition. Finally, I arranged for Mark's parents to fly in from Florida. I wanted them present not only as witnesses, but as support for both Mark and Amanda. What was about to happen would be traumatic for everyone involved, and I believed having family present would help contain the situation. The day before the planned confrontation, I asked Patricia to come to the house while Amanda was out. She helped me gather and secure my most important possessions: identification documents, irreplaceable photography equipment, family heirlooms in case I needed to leave quickly. Better safe than sorry, she advised. Then came the day itself. I had asked Mark's parents to arrive in the early afternoon, telling them only that there was a family situation that needed their attention. When they arrived, I greeted them warmly, noting the concern in their eyes. "What's this all about, Grace?" John asked as I led them into the living room. "I think it's best if we wait for Mark to get home from work," I replied. "And Amanda should be back soon too. I want us all together for this conversation." Mark arrived first, surprised and confused to find his parents in our living room. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" "Grace asked us to come," Eleanor explained. "She says there's something important we all need to discuss." Amanda returned about 20 minutes later. Her expression when she saw her parents was first shock, then quickly calculated concern. "Mom, Dad, what a surprise, is everything all right? Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" "Let's all sit down," I suggested calmly. "There's something we need to talk about as a family." Once everyone was seated, I took a deep breath and began. "I've asked you all here because something very serious has been happening in this house, and it can't continue. Amanda has been systematically trying to take over my identity and my place in this family." Amanda immediately scoffed, looking to Mark with an expression that clearly said, "Here we go again." Before anyone dismisses what I'm saying, I continued firmly. "I want you to see the evidence I've gathered." I connected my laptop to our television and began a methodical presentation of everything I had collected. Photos of her journal entries, browser history, showing her searches, the footage from my hidden cameras, showing her wearing my clothes and practicing my mannerisms, and finally the lab results confirming she had been drugging my tea. As the evidence mounted, the atmosphere in the room changed. Mark's face had grown increasingly pale, his parents looked horrified, and Amanda's confident smirk had transformed into a trapped expression. "This is all being taken out of context," she tried to argue when I paused. "The journal was a creative writing exercise. The clothes were just me trying to update my style. And that's not drugging, it's an herbal supplement to help with anxiety. An herbal supplement containing diphenhydramine at 3 times the recommended dosage," I corrected, "which you added to my drinks without my knowledge or consent." "Let her finish, Amanda," John said firmly, his expression grave. I played the recording of Amanda telling Mark we could be happy together once I was gone, and suggesting that their relationship could be romantic since she was adopted. The room fell into shocked silence. Mark looked like he might be sick. Eleanor had tears streaming down her face. John sat rigid, his expression a mixture of anger and profound sadness. Amanda's face contorted with fury. "You recorded me privately. That's illegal. She's the one breaking laws, not me." "Actually," I said quietly, "in Washington state, it's legal to record conversations that you have reason to believe may contain evidence of a crime like drugging someone or planning to have them falsely committed." Amanda jumped to her feet, pointing at me accusingly. "This is exactly what I've been telling everyone. She's paranoid delusional. She's been plotting against me, spying on me. This proves how unstable she is." "Amanda?" Mark finally spoke, his voice strained. "Stop. Just stop. I've seen the evidence. I've heard your own words. This isn't Grace being paranoid. This is you, doing something I can't even comprehend." Amanda's strategy shifted instantly, her anger dissolving into tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I've been going through so much. When Daniel left me, I just fell apart. I didn't mean any harm. I just admired Grace so much, wanted to be like her. It went too far, I see that now. I need help, not condemnation." "Yes, you do need help," Eleanor said gently, moving to take her daughter's hand. "Professional help. and we're going to make sure you get it. I think it would be best if you packed your things and left with your parents today, I said firmly. I won't press charges if you agree to seek treatment immediately. Amanda's tears dried up remarkably quickly, her expression hardening. Fine, I'll go. But this isn't over, Grace. You've turned my whole family against me. No, Amanda, Mark said, standing up. You did this to yourself. Grace welcomed you into our home, and you tried to destroy our marriage. You drugged my wife. You suggested that you and I... He couldn't even finish the sentence. Dad, can you help Amanda pack while I talk to Grace? As John and Eleanor took Amanda upstairs to collect her things, Mark turned to me, his face etched with remorse and horror. Grace, I don't even know how to begin to apologize. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you. Instead, I let her manipulate me into thinking you were the problem. You were manipulated by someone you trusted. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She's your sister. Of course you wanted to believe the best of her. But you're my wife, he said, taking my hands in his. The woman I promised to trust and support above all others. And I failed you completely. His voice broke. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at him, this man I loved so deeply, who had hurt me so profoundly by his blindness. Forgiveness wouldn't be simple or immediate, but I knew our marriage was worth fighting for. It will take time, I answered honestly. We have a lot to rebuild. But yes, Mark, I think I can forgive you. Eventually. Within an hour, Amanda was gone, leaving with her parents, who promised to get her the help she clearly needed. Mark's mother pulled me aside before they left. I'm so sorry for what you've been through, she said, embracing me tightly. Thank you for handling this with such grace, both the virtue and your name. Many would have simply called the police. She's family, I replied simply. She needs help, not punishment. After they left, Mark and I stood in our suddenly quiet home, the absence of Amanda's presence both a relief and a stark reminder of the damage that had been done. What now? He asked softly. Now, I said, we begin to heal. Together. The first few weeks after Amanda left were incredibly difficult. Though the immediate threat was gone, the emotional aftermath was just beginning. Mark and I circled each other cautiously, both wounded in different ways. I was hurt by his failure to believe me, and he was devastated by his sister's betrayal and his own blindness to it. We both agreed that professional help was necessary to navigate this trauma. I found a therapist specializing in family betrayal, and Mark started seeing someone who could help him process what had happened. We also began couples therapy, creating a safe space to express our pain and rebuild trust. I keep replaying every interaction, Mark confessed during one of our early sessions, wondering how I could have been so completely fooled. She's my sister. I should have seen something wasn't right. Amanda is extremely manipulative, our therapist explained. She knew exactly which buttons to push with both of you. Mark, she used your natural protectiveness toward family. Grace, she used your desire to be welcoming and kind. Neither of you is to blame for her actions. Gradually, we established new patterns of communication. Mark became hypervigilant about listening to my concerns sometimes, to an almost uncomfortable degree. I had to remind him that healthy skepticism was not the same as the dismissal I had experienced during Amanda's stay. I need you to be my partner, not my protector, I told him one evening. I don't want you agreeing with everything I say out of guilt. I want us to find our balance again. Rebuilding trust wasn't linear. There were days when a certain phrase or situation would trigger memories, and I would find myself withdrawing the hurt fresh again. On those days, Mark would give me space, but make sure I knew he was there. Other times he would wake from nightmares about what might have happened if I hadn't gathered evidence when I did. Meanwhile, we received updates from Mark's parents about Amanda. She had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and was receiving intensive therapy. The psychiatrist had explained that her obsession with taking over my identity stemmed from a profound sense of emptiness and instability in her own sense of self, exacerbated by her breakup with Daniel. The doctor says this doesn't excuse her behavior, but helps explain it. Eleanor told us during a phone call. She's showing some improvement, but it's going to be a long road. Mark struggled with how to maintain a relationship with his sister moving forward. I love her, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again, he confided to me. And I will never put you at risk like that again. We can figure it out together, I assured him. Healthy boundaries don't mean cutting her off completely. They mean protecting ourselves while still allowing for the possibility of a healthier relationship in the future. As for my business, I had serious damage control to do. Amanda's sabotage had resulted in some lost clients and a temporarily damaged reputation. I reached out personally to everyone affected, explained that there had been a family emergency that had impacted my work, and offered discounted sessions to make amends. Slowly, my client base rebuilt and my confidence in my professional identity returned. One of the most important steps in our healing came when Mark decided to establish clearer boundaries with his entire family. While his parents had been supportive through the crisis, there had been patterns of overlooking Amanda's concerning behavior for years. I love my parents, but they enabled a lot of Amanda's issues by making excuses for her, Mark acknowledged. I need to make it clear that while I'm not cutting off contact with any of them, our marriage comes first and we need stronger boundaries. The conversation with his parents wasn't easy, but it was necessary. They acknowledged their part in the situation, admitting they had often minimized Amanda's concerning behaviors throughout her life, rather than getting her the help she needed earlier. We thought we were protecting her, John said. Instead, we may have made everything worse by not addressing the real issues. 6 months after the confrontation, Mark and I decided to reclaim our space by completely redecorating the guest room and my studio, the areas where Amanda had spent most of her time. We painted the walls, bought new furniture, and sage smudged the entire house in a symbolic cleansing ritual suggested by Jasmine. "This is our home again," I said, as we finished hanging new curtains in the freshly painted guest room. No ghosts, no shadows. Mark took my hand, his eyes serious. "I know we still have work to do, but I want you to know how grateful I am that you fought for us, even when I couldn't see what was happening. You saved our marriage, Grace." "We saved it together," I corrected him. "You could have doubled down, refused to see the evidence. But when faced with the truth, you chose our marriage. That counts for something." The real turning point came nearly a year after Amanda left. We received a letter from her not asking to visit or for any kind of reconciliation, but simply acknowledging the harm she had caused and taking full responsibility for her actions. "I am deeply sorry for the pain and fear I caused both of you," she wrote. "While I am working on my mental health issues, I want to be clear that my diagnosis explains but does not excuse what I did. Grace, I especially want to apologize to you. You welcomed me into your home with kindness, and I repaid that with betrayal. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you both to know that I understand the gravity of my actions and am committed to never behaving that way again." The letter brought tears to both our eyes, not because it erased what had happened, but because it represented the possibility of healing not just for us, but for Amanda too. Healing isn't about forgetting or pretending the wound never existed. It's about allowing it to close properly to become part of your story without defining your entire narrative. The experience with Amanda changed us individually and as a couple. I became more assertive, more willing to trust my instincts, even when others questioned them. Mark became more attentive, more aware of the subtle dynamics in relationships. Together, we developed a deeper appreciation for honest communication and the courage to address problems directly rather than hoping they would resolve themselves. We learned that trust once broken can be rebuilt, but it requires dedication, patience, and unflinching honesty from both parties. 2 years after Amanda left our home, Mark and I finally felt ready to revisit our plans to start a family. The nursery we had begun planning before Amanda's arrival was completed, painted in soft yellows and greens. As I stood in the doorway looking at the crib Mark had assembled, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. "Do you think we're ready?" Mark asked, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. "I think we're stronger than we've ever been," I replied, leaning back against him. "We've faced one of the worst things that could happen to a marriage and came through it together. I can't think of a better foundation for becoming parents." Looking back on the entire experience now, I can see it as a painful but powerful teacher. I learnt to trust myself implicitly, to recognize that sometimes the most dangerous threats come disguised as the people we're supposed to be able to trust. I learned that gaslighting only works when you allow others to override your own perception of reality. Most importantly, I learnt that true strength isn't about never being vulnerable or never being fooled. It's about how you respond when you discover the deception. It's about standing your ground, gathering your evidence, and fighting for what matters, even when it would be easier to doubt yourself or walk away. If you're watching this and something in my story resonates with you, trust your instincts. Document everything. Find at least one person who believes you, and remember that no matter how convincing the gaslighter your reality is valid, your perceptions matter and you deserve to be believed. Have you ever experienced someone trying to undermine your reality or identity? Share your story in the comments below. And if this video helped you feel less alone or gave you strategies for dealing with manipulation, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more stories about overcoming family betrayal and rebuilding trust in future videos. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, trust yourself first. Your intuition is often trying to protect you even when others tell you you're overreacting.